The moment I stepped into the grand dining hall, a rush of mixed emotions surged through me. I could feel the chill of dread creeping down my spine. The faint hum of the lights above did nothing to ease the tension in my chest. The entire room was adorned with Christmas decorations, a merry atmosphere seeming to fill the air, but all I could feel was suffocating heat. The warm scent of roasted turkey, fresh cinnamon rolls, and spiced cider mingled with the heavy weight in my chest. It should have been a festive night, a night of laughter, family, and holiday cheer. But the feeling in my stomach was anything but festive. It was a pit of uncertainty and fear. My parents were standing at the head of the long, white linen-covered table, smiling. My mother wore a deep red dress, her perfect curls framing her face. My father, as always, was dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair slicked back. They looked like the picture of success, like the perfect upper-middle-class couple. But their smiles, though wide, didn't reach their eyes. They never did anymore. As I stepped further into the room, the sound of laughter and chatter came to an abrupt halt. The air grew thick, and the room seemed to freeze in time. Every single person in the room turned their gaze toward me. I swallowed hard, feeling like the walls were closing in. There were 200 relatives, some I had never met, others I hadn't seen in years. They all looked at me as though they knew something I didn't. The silence was deafening. And then, the smile on my mother's face widened. She gestured for me to come closer, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. "Come, dear," she said in a voice that was too sweet, too forced. My legs moved instinctively, though my heart was pounding against my ribcage. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, and with each passing second, the air around me grew colder. I kept my gaze fixed forward, trying to avoid the dozens of eyes staring at me. My father cleared his throat, a gesture that caught everyone's attention. He smiled, his voice calm, like this was all so normal. But I could hear the sharp edge to it. "Everyone," he began, "we've gathered here today to celebrate Christmas, yes. But we have another matter to address." I stopped in my tracks. The weight of his words sank into my chest like a stone. The way he looked at me, there was no love in his gaze, just coldness. He glanced briefly at my mother, who still stood beside him, her hands folded neatly in front of her. He spoke again, his voice cutting through the silence. "It is time we make something very clear, something that has been a long time coming." My breath caught. I tried to swallow, but the lump in my throat refused to budge. What was happening? "We are disowning our daughter." The words hit me like a wave, knocking the breath from my lungs. My stomach twisted violently. The room spun. Disowned. The word echoed in my mind as if everything I had known, every shred of family, every sense of love and belonging, had just shattered into a million pieces. How had I ended up here? I looked around the room at my relatives, the eyes of 100 different people, all of them waiting for me to react. I could feel their judgment, their curiosity, their pity. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear into the floor. But my legs were frozen. My heart was frozen. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. My father's voice continued, but it sounded muffled now. "This is for the best. She has made her choices. Her actions speak for themselves." The harshness in his words cut deeper than any physical blow could have. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout at him, at them both, to stop, to make them take it back. But I couldn't find the words. My throat felt tight, and my whole body was trembling. My mother, her face was unreadable, like a mask she wore so perfectly. She didn't speak. She didn't try to console me. She simply stood there, cold and silent. The silence in the room felt like it was choking me. I couldn't even look at my father anymore. His face, the same face I had known all my life, now seemed like a stranger's. The man who was supposed to love me, protect me, now stood before me with nothing but disdain. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My body felt heavy, like it was sinking into the floor. How had this happened? How had I become the person they were ashamed of? But as I stood there, the whispers from the crowd grew louder in my mind. I felt the eyes of the 200 relatives judging me, silently accusing me of something I wasn't entirely sure of. Every pair of eyes made me feel smaller, less than, as if I had somehow failed them all. I blinked rapidly, trying to clear the tears that were threatening to spill. My chest tightened with the pressure of their cold indifference. "You're no longer part of this family," my father's voice rang out, breaking through my haze. "You don't belong here." I didn't even recognize the person speaking. This wasn't my father. This was someone I didn't know, someone I didn't want to know. And then it hit me, the truth. This wasn't just about me. This was about control. This was about them maintaining their image, their perfect, flawless family, and I, somehow, had become the blemish they couldn't erase fast enough. My eyes wandered over to my mother, who hadn't moved, hadn't said a word. I needed her now. I needed her to defend me, to protect me, to say something. But she didn't. I turned to face the room. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice weak, barely above a breath. "I'm so sorry for disappointing you." The words were out before I could stop them. I hadn't wanted to say them. But there they were, my deepest regrets, my confessions, laid bare for all to hear. But my father scoffed. "Sorry? That's all you have to say? Sorry for your failure? Sorry for not being good enough?" His words were sharp, biting. They were like daggers. And the worst part? I couldn't argue. I couldn't defend myself. I had no right to. I had failed them. I had failed myself. And yet, in that moment, something inside me cracked open. I'd spent my whole life chasing their approval, doing everything I could to make them proud. But nothing was ever enough. I had bent myself in every direction, twisting and contorting to fit into the mold they had created for me. But tonight, I realized something: I would never fit. I was never meant to fit. With a sudden clarity, I straightened up. I lifted my head, no longer hiding from their gaze, no longer cowering under the weight of their expectations. "I don't need your approval," I said, my voice trembling but gaining strength. "I never did." My father's eyes narrowed, and my mother's lips pressed into a tight line. But neither spoke. Instead, they both stood there, watching me with indifference. I glanced at the faces of my relatives one last time. Some were staring at me with confusion, others with disgust, a few with sympathy. But I no longer cared. I didn't need their approval either. And so I turned away. Without another word, I walked out of that room, out of their lives, and into the cold night. The door slammed behind me, but the silence from within lingered in my mind. But as I stood there in the darkness, I felt something shift. I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. I was free.